Given a couple minutes to anyone coming in late. All right, so let's get going. Hi everyone. My name is Catherine Cook. I am a developer trainer here at Configura. I'm also newly in charge of our documentation, our trainings. I'm available for assistance to any external developers who just want to meet. And today I'll be taking you guys through the new extension analytics that Configura has just released, basically what it is, and then also how to go about implementing it in your extensions if you would like to. So today for our agenda, first I'll just do a quick overview of the different types of analytics. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail for all of the other three types. The main one we're going to be going over is extension analytics. That is what this webinar is for. Then I'll go over how to use extension analytics, especially going into collecting custom events, which is something developers are able to do with this type of analytics. We'll go over what kind of events you're allowed to log and what information you're allowed to collect. There are some rules. And then I have links for official analytics documentation, both for anyone who just wants to read about it and get generic info and know how it works. And then also there is a lot of documentation for developers, including examples. And then we can go over any questions anyone has. So first, up. All right. So first, I'll just do a quick overview of dashboard analytics. So this is an analytics product we released back in May. This is free. It's part of the publishing program. You can see it if you go to My Configura, and there should be another tab at the top if you're an extension owner, and you should be able to see just a tab called Analytics. And you can then see for your extension just overall information about your extension, mainly in order to see install trends and stability monitoring. This is already out, and that is not the main one we'll be going over today. Today we will be talking about extension analytics. This was released in August. It is basically for getting specific usage information about how users are using your extension or the extensions of the manufacturers you work with in the case of if you're a developer. The third type of analytics is product analytics. This is currently unreleased. The tentative timeline is mid-November for this to be released. And it will be meant to provide info about specific products and provide the types of info that a person working in forecasting would like to see. Like, oh, this many of this type of product were placed, and this many of this product were placed, and this new release was used a lot, and that sort of information. This is currently unreleased, but is actively being worked on and hopefully will be out this year. The last type is market analytics. This is also unreleased. We don't have an ETA at the moment. This will be a benchmarking tool for manufacturers to see how, what overall trends in your industry is in the market, and then figure out where an extension falls compared to other extensions. So today, we'll only pretty much be going over extension analytics, not the other three types. So let's get going. So extension analytics is basically the ability to query specific events during specific time periods. You can access this through the same analytics dashboard that you can find in My Configura. There's another tab in that analytics dashboard that'll let you see, it'll bring you up a form basically where you can put in the information you want to see and it'll give you the graphs with that information. Initially, you'll be able to see 4 different event types. Snapper being inserted, assuming that your snapper is one-to-one with the product. Snapper being selected, toolboxes being clicked, and dialogues being shown or hidden. All of these are collected by default in CET core code. For extensions, you do not need to do anything to get these actually being collected. They are collected by default. Whether or not you have visibility into the collected information depends on if you have purchased an analytics like access agreement with Configura. You're also allowed to collect custom events. Basically, if your extension is special in some way or abnormal and the generic collection of events isn't enough, or you have specific events you want to monitor that aren't by default, or your extension implements a product in a different way that's unique that doesn't get taken into account. Basically, all of these things can be edited and customized by a developer. So I'm going to show you this dashboard. I'll flip over there. So we'll go to my Configura. Are you guys able to see my monitor right now? I don't know if it's sharing PowerPoint or just my screen.
Yep, we can see both.
Okay, cool. So the analytics tab is right here. You click this. So the overview, this is the dashboard analytics. We are looking at extension analytics here. By default, since I am a Configura employee, it's just going to show me statistics for the Configura owned extensions like Fika or accessories or whatever. So how this works, I can say I want to see how many snappers were inserted. I want to go by class name instead of I could do it by a package. I could do it by an entity key. We'll go over that. For data symbols, I could go by product catalogs or enterprise. For commercial interior libraries, you can choose by enterprise. I guess for now, I want to see how many Fika panels have been inserted. So I'll go class name, and I'm going to go Fika Office Data Panel Frame. This does involve you having to know your class names if you're going to go with this one. And I want to see from the last 6 months, I guess. All right. So now I can see basically how many Fika panels were inserted into CET over the last 6 months. I can see trends, I can see quantities. This is basically how this works. So I'll flip back over here. All right. So before I go over how to log custom events, I'm going to go over the rules for what you are allowed and not allowed to log. There are a few that Configura has put out. First off, and most importantly, we are not allowed to connect or collect any personal data or any personal identifying information. Configura is a Swedish company, so we hold ourselves to GDPR standards, which is the European privacy information law. And this means we hold all of our extensions to this also. That includes developers and manufacturers. And some examples of information you're not allowed to collect are like names, locations, IP addresses, like ID numbers or personal identifying numbers, email addresses, anything like that. I've included a link to further GDPR. I don't know if with this new Dev Academy, I don't know if the PowerPoint is made available, but I have a link here if you are able to access the PowerPoint. But you can see the address here. It's just GDPR. You can just search for what actually counts as personal data. So all information that any developer or manufacturer logs it has to be compliant with GDPR privacy standards. Additionally, you are not allowed to log any information about manufacturers other than yourself. It must belong to your manufacturer only. Self-explanatory. Data should not contain any product-related information. And by this, I mean extension analytics is meant to focus on user behavior and all right, they are using this and they are not using this. And this is how our extension is being interacted with. Product related data, like, oh, they ordered this many of this sort of this panel frame and this many of this accessory, those are meant to be collected through product analytics instead. And that is another type of analytics that we kind of glossed over before. But for extension analytics, you should not be collecting a lot of product related information. You can customize, like, if you're collecting info about classes and your classes are one-to-one with a product, that's kind of unavoidable. That's fine. But in terms of like, I want to see product trends and what's being ordered and what's not, don't collect that through extension analytics. That's meant to be collected through product analytics. And if anyone ever has questions about what is and isn't allowed, developer support is always available, and you can either message me directly about what is or isn't allowed. I have contact information at the end of this slideshow, and then developer support is also available, and they can either answer themselves, or you can come to me, or we can ask the team who implemented this, whatever you guys need. All right. So now for the next couple slides are going to be geared towards developers only, basically how to customize the analytics that you collect. So one of the first concepts we're going to talk about is a stats entity identifier. I'm going to flip back to here. So when I go and I want to see information right here, all right, I want to see for things being inserted. And if I choose like a class name, what I'm passing in here is a stats identifier. By default, on the class snapper, it's just the class name. So your identifier is basically like, here's a unique stats type that I want to collect info on. And so when when stuff is logged about that stat, they all get considered together. I could search on generic entity key because developers can provide their own entity keys, and I could put that key in here. But by default, your entity key is going to be your class name. It's not going to be your like unique GUI. You don't want to collect info about this one Snapper instance with this 112-digit identifying code, because then you only get like one Snapper inserted ever. You want like collections of like, you want it like conceptually, these are the same. I want to know about this object, this unique entity. So that's what I'm talking about right here for managing your stats entity identifiers. We talked about how the default is its class name. There may be cases where you'll need to override this. And one of those would be like if variations of a snapper share the same class. Like if I have my panel class and it actually covers like 5 different products, well, that would be more product information. But basically, if I have an accessory and then there's a field on the accessory saying, oh, you are a shelf, you are a undersurface electrical mount, you are whatever, and they all use the same class, but you need to know info about them. You need to know their statistics individually. This is what you would customize. 2 warnings if you're going to customize this. Similar to like concepts like local bounds, just don't do heavy computation in this method because it gets called a lot. You don't want to do something that takes 5 milliseconds, 20 milliseconds if it's in a method that's going to be frequently called, so don't do heavy computation here. And don't change your entity keys often or frequently across releases, because like if I go back here, this is all the information for this entity key. And if my entity key changed here and here and here, you would have to search info for each of those keys individually, and it's hard to see overall trends. It would start collecting for different keys. It makes sense. You want information over a long period of time. You want consistency, and you want to be able to see what is actually happening. So don't change your entity keys out if you can, in order to get the best information from your analytics dashboard. So the method you would override, it exists on Snapper and Window, stats entity key. Basically, you provide, hey, this is my entity key in this case, and this is my entity key in this case. So this is the method you're going to use to let the analytics dashboard know, hey, this is a unique statistics object. Collect all the information here under this key. Next, so there are events that we talked about, the 4 events that are logged by default that Configura has baked into the software now that are always being caught. But there are some cases where the information you want is missed somehow, like you have a custom insert that doesn't get naturally caught, or you are using a dialogue that you made yourself and it doesn't have this information that you need, or any other number of situations, and you need to catch these missed events. In these cases, you can log it manually in your code. Regarding insert, if your custom events actually result in an undo insert operation being added to your undo stack, they've already been recorded, because that is how insert statistics monitoring works. It actually is baked into the undo chain and is monitoring the undo chain to see what actually happens. So if your custom inserts actually use the correct undo insert operations, then they've already been recorded and you don't need to worry about it. But if you are using a custom undo operation, then you would use the following method, log snapper insert event. And you can just call this directly, passing in your relevant information. You can go look up that full function and its parameters after this webinar if you would like. But basically, you need to get your events logged to the environment G3 user event environment. And this method you can directly call will do that for you. Regarding dialogues, if your dialogue show and hide events are not being explicitly called, then you would just call log frame window show event or hide event. And those will do the exact same thing. They will log to G3 user event environment for you. There are lots of cases all throughout CET to see what events are logged and how they're logged. And you can go and just look at these and see how they're being handled and what specifically is being logged by just searching for G3 user event. You can search anywhere in CM Core, CM Win. This is just if you would like to explore, all right, how are they doing it? What is it actually? How is it being recorded? See what the interfaces available are. This is a good jumping off point after this webinar if you are curious about more events down in there. Now, when you log custom information, you need to link it to your manufacturer. Otherwise, when you flip to this page and you go here and you're looking at information for a specific manufacturer and you're like, oh, I really want for CET commercial interiors. I think only Configura people can access that, but I specifically want bathroom accessories or whatever. You need your information being logged needs to be able to say, hey, I'm part of bathroom accessories. So when I go and I click that and I'm searching for its statistics information, it knows, hey, I'm part of this. So you need to get your info linked to the correct manufacturer. There are 3 different ways to link it. There's a G3 manufacturer. If you look down on the right corner here, G3 manufacturer ID is a class. Basically, you would override stats manufacturer, and you need to return a G3 manufacturer ID. And you can construct that with one of 3 different pieces of information. Your package or your catalog portfolio ID or your manufacturer ID for commercial interiors library data. Now, the catalog portfolio ID, this will link it based on like certain portfolios, but portfolios are owned or by certain manufacturers, so it still gets piped back to the overall manufacturer. With manufacturer and package, number 1 here, this would be your main package of an extension, not any of your sub-extension packages or your like abstract packages within your extension. This is your main one because this is how it identifies the manufacturer that you are linking with. It does have a default callback. So it'll by default call, if you look down on the bottom right again, get main extension package. And so this by default will try to get that package for you. But if you need to customize this and say, hey, I'm going to this specific manufacturer, then you would override the method stats manufacturer in order to provide your a different manufacturer ID. Now, in cases where, like data symbol is interesting because you have all sorts of products and they all use the exact same class. So basically for generic class types, you're going to run into a problem, especially if you try to search on class name and you need something more specific than just data symbol, because if you have an extension of data symbols, you're going to get every single sniper. So in this case, you do need to do some customization. You would override the stats entity method. This I will show you. All right, so I do have links to this. We'll go over that, but the stats entity method, developing for extension analytics. So there is an example down in here in our documentation for customizing your data symbols or generic classes, saying, hey, my stats entity, I need you to be custom in this way because my class name isn't enough. There are full examples in the available developer documentation and in Fika. Then, if these customizations so far are not what you needed, you can also log your generic custom events. Any event you want, you can pretty much log. And to do that, you have two methods available. You can call log custom event, which is just, you can log any string you want. Or you can do log numeric event, in which case this will treat it as a number, and then it'll use those numbers to construct the graphs. So you have two completely interesting. 1 second. I see your guys' questions in the chat. I will get to those as soon as we get to the questions section, but I have seen them. All right. So I will now show a demo of in Fika. All right. So Fika has examples of all sorts of different customizations you can do with analytics, and one of them is logging custom events. Fika has a data panel manager dialog, and we wanted to say, hey, I want to know how often this thing gets refreshed. So they call log custom event in the refresh callback. So I have my panel dialog open and I actually refresh it. All right. It's been refreshed. I want to log a custom event. I just straight up call this function. The things that get passed in are the actual action, and then this is your identifier, it's just a string, and then your stats entity key, like we talked about. So the stats entity key is the Fika panel manager, and then the action we want to monitor is refresh. Same down here, they're logging a numeric event. The same stats entity key, the Fika panel manager, but we want to now log refresh time taken. And we're going to say, hey, the numeric type that we're monitoring is actually a timestamp, and then the actual value you're passing in. So Fika is logging two custom events right here, and an additional optional one here, and we can go and actually look at those in the analytics. I'm going to go, I want to see a custom action. And the action I want to see is refresh. And now the entity key I want to actually see refresh actions for is Fika panel manager. So I'm going to type that in. And then I want to see the last 6 months, and I'm going to generate a result. And now I can see this is how many times this has been called, and it's only been logged in the last couple weeks, and it's been called about 20 times. So this is how you would go about implementing your custom events. And now I'll flip back to here. All right. So here I have links. These are both very fleshed out documentation. They're very good. This Help Center article called Analytics FAQ is basically all the overall concepts about all 4 types. Sorry, my headset turned off. If no one talks for a half hour, it turns itself off. Very annoying. Okay, so for overall concepts about all 4 types of analytics, including extension analytics and general information, you can go to the Help Center and search Analytics FAQ. It is under Manufacturer Analytics in the Help Center. If you have access to this PowerPoint, you can just click this link here. For developers, if you search Developer Overview of Analytics, it is under CET Developer, Core Implementations under Analytics. There is extensive documentation there, including examples for all the different types of analytics for developers. Fika also has implementations and customizations of all the analytics, and you can find them in Fika in the base branch main. I think the branch main right now is under code freeze for 15.5, so I don't think anything will be changing soon in there, so you can pull it and take a look. I don't know what is actually released out in 15.0 for extension analytics, but I do know that there are a lot of examples that currently exist in the main branch. All right, so I have also I have some common questions and some answers, which we'll go over first. One of the questions we got was, is data collected in real time? And the answer is no. There is a lag of up to 1 day between when a user actually performs an action and when the event is actually searchable in the page. The analytics get logged to a specific file, and that gets synced with our servers. I don't know the actual time interval that actually goes, but then it has to both get synced with the servers, and then the server has to make the info available. And so it's a lag of up to 1 day between when the things actually happen and when they are searchable. Can an extension owner download all that data in Excel format instead of searching by specific keys or searching based on only one class or whatever? And the answer is yes, but that is not available until November. It is being finished up right now. There will be a way to download everything as a CSV file and then opened up in Excel for further processing and sorting for people who like to see their results in Excel instead. Are the actions done by QA logged by analytics? To double check. Okay. So are the actions done by QA logged by analytics, and will that skew results? The answer is yes, but only for now, because we know this is a problem and then it is actively being solved like as we speak. So if a QA decides, oh, I need to test large drawing sizes, and they're like, haha, I'm going to place 5,000 Fika chairs or whatever, and then the placement of those will get logged to analytics and will probably skew them. But there is currently work happening right now to be able to filter these out. Configure had to decide what the best ways to filter them out was. So there's currently ongoing work to filter out actions taken by users with CET developer licenses, anyone with a configura.com email domain, and QA members. And then ideally, we'll have a method for extension owners to be able to identify certain users, like, hey, this person is part of our internal user acceptance testing. We don't want their info to be counted towards analytics, so please don't include them in stats. But since this is currently being worked on, there is no released official solution yet, but it is coming out and we do know about the problem. I have my contact information here for if you guys want to email me with any questions or assistance, you can contact me. I am, like I said, I work now in developer training and documentation, and so I would love to help out. You can also freely contact developer support. They'll be able to help you, and they also have free access to me. So if you have any other questions or you're trying to implement this and finding struggles or anything, just feel free to let me know. I'm assuming that it did not end early, and you guys are all still here.
Yep, we're still here. I did put something in the chat. We are getting a notice that like the Zoom meeting is actually supposed to end in 1 minute and 11 seconds. I don't actually know if that's true. If that does happen, I did put a link to another session in the Dev Academy, and we'll make sure we get this fixed for next time. So sorry for any inconvenience if it does happen.
All right.
Hey, Catherine, it's Judy. There's two more questions in the chat, but they put them into everyone, and I don't think you're not seeing those.
I do see them. I'm actually screenshotting them right now just in case, because I want to answer them, and I don't know if this one will auto end. We told Zoom, hey, this is going to be an hour long, and Zoom is still saying, oh, we're going to end it in less than a minute. So, I don't know. This is why I prefer Teams meetings instead. All right, let me see these questions. All right. For manufacturers, how is it a good user experience to know the class name to see product analytics? In this case, product analytics are a separate type of analytics, and those will be logged differently in a much more like, I want to see specific products rather. I don't need to know class name.
No, the reason I asked that question is I get it that it's specific information, but the manufacturers are paying a lot of money to receive these analytics. And if the language is put in developer language, it is not going to solve for, 80% of the manufacturers that are on the marketplace that would want to access this. So I just really want to challenge your thoughts on that. How do you make the front end manufacturer friendly, knowing that the back end is the developer connections?
Adam, didn't the team say that one of the things they were doing this quarter is changing it to like actually have human readable strings instead of the JSON entries?
Yeah, I think there was some efforts for that. I don't 100% know what that looks like because, there would have to be some intervention by a developer to make sure that those strings are human readable. When we're talking about extension analytics, when it comes to product analytics, they were talking about potentially API access where a developer would have to generate the kind of queries and stuff that a manufacturer would be interested in. So for that one, it would be kind of on the developer who's accessing that API to make it human readable as they're going through the inquiries.
So
That's
product
the latest
analytics, yes. So product analytics would be that like, oh, how often are they placing or ordering this product, and how often are they placing this specific product, and then not ordering it, or how often are they ordering these products compared to these other ones? While extension analytics is like, oh, we just released this new dialogue tool. It's supposed to be really useful. We want to know how is it actually being used? Do the users know about it? Are they actually clicking on it? Are they actually like, how often are users actually clicking on our extension? How are they like, are they actually placing these snappers? We put out this new extension. Are they actually placing these things rather than knowing anything about specific products?
Again, though, do you see where the languages that you're using is for a developer, but most of the manufacturers, like Snapper to them means nothing. Products mean something to them. And then however a developer is creating and this is a note to everybody, like if you're creating some custom analytics, rock it. Like I can't encourage you more to help manufacturers from that perspective, but our front end user face has to make it easy for them to go in. So if they want to learn how they've created a new, any of those examples that you had, it has to be in their common language. Like think of it as a chat GPT, right? I can type anything in there and it's usually using, the natural language to solve for me. I don't have to be a JSON expert.
Yeah, that's a good point. I know it is something that the team knows about, that like currently as it is, it's the actual straight up raw data. I don't have specifics for you on how that will be changing, but I know it's something they wanted to change and improve on. But I can go and talk to the team and see.
Yeah,
Because we'll be
because
giving this webinar again next month. This one is for basically for all of our like partners. Be like, all right, you get this information first before the manufacturers come to you and are asking, hey, we want to know, can you implement this for us? Because you need the information ahead of time. So I'll see if I can get that information by next time.
Perfect. And I'm a very optimistic person, but my recommendations to a manufacturer right now is I would not invest in these analytics, because for you to navigate and try to get the information to feed back to your CEO about the use and the ROI on the extension, they're going to need a computer sci degree to be able to maneuver through this, or to have to consult or contract their development partner and translate what they're looking for to create these reports weekly, monthly, or something like that. If that makes sense, I'm just being brutally honest.
Okay, thanks for the feedback on that one.
Right. I've written that down, get an update on that, especially for the next webinar. The next time we'll host this one. Oops. Okay. For the next question, it was Felipe, you had asked, when it comes to data symbols, how does the tool tell snappers from different manufacturers? Does it check the DSP data information? You guys are able to see my Emacs, yes?
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
So data symbol is an example of generic snapper class. This is one like every single product that you insert into a drawing from the catalog browser is all going to be data symbol, and they're pulling data from all sorts of different manufacturers. And so how this class implements it, we're going to go entity. All right, how it does it by going to, so data stats entity, auxiliary stats entities. So these methods right here are how like, all right, so data symbol, it needs to know what manufacturer should I be logging info to. Basically, it's going and looking at the catalog. This has been overridden and it's saying, hey, build up the manufacturer based on my portfolio ID, which is owned by a manufacturer. And it gets that from the data. In the same way here, auxiliary stats entities. If you actually go down, so data itself, DSP data, provides, hey, what is my stats entity? And basically it's finding all of the information that's like, hey, this is what we actually care about in order to create an entity, and this is how we're going to differentiate between each other. So you can basically go in and look, DSP data and data symbol all have overridden these in order to find like, hey, how, if you have 300 data symbols all from different manufacturers, how do we actually log to the correct manufacturer? And they've handled that by controlling manufacturer here and the controlling stats entities for like if you have a multi-data and you have lots of different datas, basically saying I have multiple stats entities here, and you can get them. You can just go through all these methods. They're all overridden, and then if you find one and you're like, hey, this isn't explained well enough in the code, that'd be a good thing to let dev support know. And then she will pass it on to me, and I can ensure that the code actually gets better documented. One of my jobs is like, hey, to listen to our external developers who say, hey, this feature, this whatever, this class, this system doesn't make sense. You don't have a help article on it. You don't have anything. It needs to be documented. We're trying to use it. I've only just started this new role as of like a couple weeks ago. But that's the type of information I need. So if you find something that needs documentation, just let us know, and then that'll get passed off to me to actually handle. But if this does have information already on it, but if it's not enough, just let us know. But yes, to answer your question, Felipe, it is doing this based on per manufacturer. That's how it basically goes through the DSP data and then creates the identifiers there. All right, do we have any other questions? All right, if we don't have any more, we can call it here. Both of these have been recorded. I will talk to Adam about how we want to distribute them. And then hopefully anyone who missed it can also get the recordings. If you guys do end up having more questions or you're trying to implement it and running into issues, email me or dev support. And we'll be running this session again if you would like to attend again in October. The one in October will pretty much is open to everyone, including like manufacturers. So yeah, I think that is it for me.